Omoyele Sowore, a well-known Nigerian activist and political figure, presents a provocative message to the Nigerian government, in which he boldly declares that any attempts to arrest him would be futile. Sowore dares the authorities, claiming that their oppressive tactics are ineffective in silencing revolutionary movements. Sowore's message highlights his unwavering commitment to a revolution in Nigeria, framing his political activism as an unquenchable fire. His statement, "You cannot arrest the revolution," emphasizes his belief in the unstoppable nature of the ideological movement that he advocates. Sowore aligns himself with the people, taking on a fearless stance, positioning himself as a martyr willing to be detained for the cause of a better Nigeria. This draws parallels to historic revolutionaries like Nelson Mandela and other figures who were willing to face oppression for the sake of societal reform. From a critic's standpoint, there's a delicate balance between seeing Sowore as a heroic figure fighting against an oppressive system and viewing him as a radical whose approach might invite more chaos than resolution. Some might argue that his boldness emboldens citizens to take up arms and protest, but without structured leadership or clear policy goals, these protests could become anarchic. Others may see his rhetoric as dangerous because it dismisses democratic systems. He openly mocks those who believe in elections as a solution, suggesting instead that revolution is the only path forward. Sowore's criticism of the Nigerian government is multifaceted. He condemns the economic policies under the current leadership, which he claims have caused widespread suffering. By stating that Nigerians are no longer afraid of death, he points to a deeply disillusioned and desperate population. This suggests that the government's failures have led to a breakdown in the social contract, where the populace no longer believes that the government is capable of improving their conditions through conventional means. Critics, however, might challenge this view. They could argue that by promoting revolution over reform, Sowore dismisses the potential for dialogue, negotiation, and gradual policy changes, which are often the more sustainable routes to progress in a fragile democracy like Nigeria's. His rhetoric could be seen as dismissive of the institutions that, while flawed, are necessary for long-term national stability. Sowore's remarks about his court appearance underscore the dysfunction within Nigeria's legal system. He describes how the prosecutor was absent and how court proceedings were delayed. This reflects a broader frustration many Nigerians have with the inefficiency and lack of transparency in the judicial process. From a critical standpoint, this is not only an indictment of the judicial system, but also an indictment of governance as a whole. A nation that cannot deliver timely justice often fails to uphold the rule of law, leading to an erosion of public trust. However, a counter-critique might point out that Sowore's willingness to go through the legal process, despite its inefficiencies, suggests that the system, flawed as it may be, still holds relevance. The legal system becomes both a stage for his defiance and a battleground for political reform. Sowore's repeated arrests and brushes with the law have seemingly become part of his brand as an activist. His daring the government to arrest him again reveals his understanding of the psychological power of resistance. He frames his potential arrest not as a defeat, but as a rallying point for his supporters. This strategy can be critically analyzed from a psychological perspective. By normalizing arrest, Sowore not only desensitizes his supporters to fear, but also casts the government as the antagonist in a narrative where he is the resilient hero. Critically, one could question whether this approach trivializes the consequences of arrest and imprisonment, particularly in a country where the legal system is slow and opaque. If people begin to see imprisonment as an expected or even noble part of activism, it may reduce the urgency for systemic reforms that can ensure fair trials and humane treatment of prisoners. Sowore's dismissal of elections as a path to change is one of the more controversial parts of his rhetoric. He mentions that those who still believe elections can solve their problems sighed, and they doed it, a cryptic statement that points to the alleged failures of the electoral process under President Tinubu's regime. This sentiment is echoed by many in Nigeria who feel disillusioned with the political system, where elections are often marred by allegations of rigging, voter suppression, and violence. Yet, critics of Sowore may argue that dismissing elections is counterproductive. Elections, while flawed, are a cornerstone of democratic governance, and dismissing them outright risks undermining the very fabric of democracy. The real challenge, some might argue, is not to abandon elections, but to work toward electoral reform that ensures fairness, transparency, and accountability. Sowore's message raises several points for public discourse. Is revolution the only way forward for Nigeria? Or is there still hope for reform through democratic processes? Are the arrests of political activists a sign of a failing government? Or are they necessary to maintain order in a politically turbulent society? What role should international organizations play in supporting or condemning these actions? Sowore's message is both inspiring and divisive. His defiance against the government taps into a widespread feeling of frustration, but it also raises questions about the future of political activism in Nigeria. Can the country achieve meaningful change through revolution, or does Sowore's rejection of elections undermine the democratic process? I will play the video for you guys to watch and see for yourself. Feel free to share your thought, opinion, and comment. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notification icon to be notified whenever I drop new update.
We will never run away from them.
Yes.
So, and we know that during end bad governance protests, a lot of people were arrested. Some of them are still in detention as we speak. Because why? They wanted a better country for themselves. We must get to a point where we say enough is enough.
Yes.
And that people who deserve or want a better country should not be afraid of people who are destroying their country. Yes. So, but as it is typical, we got to court today. The prosecutor was not available. In fact, we just saw the prosecutor now. So, we have now seen the court, and we have seen our people. But as I always say, going to court is just one thing of the many things we have to do every day.
Yes.
Because we have a country to save and a people to liberate. And nothing can stop an idea whose time has come.
Yes.
Even in my coming to Nigeria, as you all are aware, I was arrested briefly at the airport. In my coming to Abuja today, somebody even called me and said they want to arrest me. And I said, I will be the happiest person to be arrested at any time. Because you cannot arrest the revolution. You can only arrest us for a few hours, few days, few months, and I've been through it before. And I'm willing to go through it again for the sake of the people of Nigeria. So, we got a new date again after coming to court, and we are going to be back in November. But it is very important that before November there's October. And in October there's October 1.
Yes.
Yes. And October 1 is fearless in October. Yes. Let me say that I'm really, really proud of those of you who fought during the August end bad governance struggle. Very, very proud. I could not be here. I apologize. But I will be here for this one.
Woo! Hey. Revolution!
And if they arrest me that day, please don't let that disturb you. You should, in fact, it should double your enthusiasm to make it even bigger. Because I was arrested in 2019 before revolution now. It still happened. I was restricted to Abuja. We still made NSAS happen. So I was not in Nigeria. End bad governance happened. So I'm not even big deal anymore in this struggle. You guys have become more radical than myself. So anybody that is wasting his time plotting some plots, they're just wasting your time, because Nigerians have reached a point where they are no longer afraid of death. Yes. Because the Tinubu regime has killed us with economic policies, with political policies. And those people who still believe that election can solve their problem, they saw it in Edo State yesterday.